What the?
Oh, there's a goal! Oh, at least I thought he was gonna until he blew it.
When you think of the off-season, you think of overpayments. It's the only way to get talent, many will say. But you must be wise about your spending. If you let it get out of hand, you'll end up in the real-life version of cap hell. Managing expenses and where the money goes isn't just critical for pro teams, but also to you. This is the part where Rocket Money, the sponsor of this video, aids us in a daunting task. Their handy-dandy app manages all your spending and even helps in lowering your bills. Sometimes there's a subscription you forget about and want to cancel. Well, Rocket Money can help with that. Looking on the app, I had a PBS subscription for years I didn't realize was still eating away a monthly payment. Rocket Money canceled it for me. That alone makes it worth the cost. There were over $500 million in canceled subscriptions on the app. That's up to $740 a year. 5 million members use Rocket Money, myself included. Join us by going to rocketmoney.com/tree or click the link in the description to get started for free and unlock even more features with premium. Rocket Money's worth it for what it'll save you in general. Now to the reckless spending. There's good news in the hockey world. After years of COVID-forced stagnation, the NHL salary cap is finally going back up. This is the year that every player and his agent were waiting for. The moment when the checkbooks would open back up. Over $1 billion invested in one day for the first time in NHL history. A mere week after the Stanley Cup was raised, pay rates will be raised for anyone with a pulse. Are you a fourth-line grinder on a good team, you'll be getting $2 million a season. If you're a third-pairing crease clearer and physical defender, you'll be getting about $4 million a year. Out with the old prospects, in with a future buyer's remorse. And I bet there's gonna be a lot of it in the next year or two. That remorse will not be for the Florida Panthers. They don't give a shit, the cup is finally theirs. It was nearly ripped from them in the meme to end all memes, but it's very hard to win 4 games in a row. Just ask Florida themselves. As the celebrations will continue deep into the summertime, there will be many graduations to paydays richer than they can afford. It's the price all championship teams pay. The cup tax is very real. And there was a hard choice to make in terms of their core. Sign Montour or sign Reinhart. They chose Reinhart. For what he brings and the money being given, it's a relative bargain, but that's the kind of thing that has to be done. The same goes for Anton Lundell, now making $5 million a season for his quality play. In the meantime, welcome reunions of all shapes and sizes. Chris Drieger returns to the place that made him an NHL regular. And Nate Schmidt reunites with Paul Maurice as his coach. May the celebrations continue into the night. Canada continues to seethe. Coming up short is a hurdle that has to be overcome. Getting to the brink of glory just to miss the target is agony personified. The Oilers dealt with it in 2006 and they're dealing with it again. This was their shot. Leon's contract is expiring after this season and Connor's will end in 2 years. If the high-end talent is to be resecured, cap hell is their future. 2025 might be their last great chance. And that in and of itself is no guarantee. Quest for forward depth is relentless. And bringing in the likes of Victor Arvidsson and Jeff Skinner are intriguing buys. Both have their risks, but at that price, injuries and inconsistency can be overlooked. Adam Henrique is back for another shot as well, which is good. Matthew Savoie acquired from Buffalo, even better. And Jack Campbell's disastrous deal has been bought out. Such a shame for no one, especially not Calvin Pickard. Ken Holland, though? He's stepping away from the franchise. His work as mentor is complete, and he'll ride off to his next great adventure. Maybe it's retirement, maybe it's to relish in his old days in Detroit. The 2000s wings, not the declining Empire version. No one wants to face the end of a cup window. Reality smacking you right in the face is the worst fear of so many franchises from sport to sport. The Lightning are at this crossroads. They could stick with the core that got them to 3 Cup Finals appearances, or they could be bold and push into a new frontier. Tampa chose the latter. They can't let Florida hog all the spotlight. Even if it means shedding old faces, the sacrifices must be made. Ryan McDonough can come back, but Mikhail Sergachev is damaged goods regardless of pedigree. Mormons will take him on in return for new blood in J.J. Moser and Connor Geeky. Tanner Jeannot, the great Campbell they paid an unbelievable price for, has been a disappointing flop. Nick Paul or Brendan Hagel, he is not. The stench needs to be removed or going to Skid Row in L.A. Semgus Girgensons and Cam Atkinson are fresh meat to grind for depth, but that doesn't solve their stammer. Steven, you were a great soldier for the Lightning. You may have been willing to take a significant pay cut to stay, but it's not enough. Bait must be cast. You're not hip enough. A jolt must be given. And that new face is in Jake and Bake. Rights acquired from Carolina and secured for 7 years at a handsome sum. Him and Kucherov will make magic happen. And Victor Hedman will continue to join them for another election cycle. The debate is simple. Gensel and Hedman, or Stamkos and Hedman? It's gonna rage on for a good bit, I reckon. Remember when we all thought that the Preds were going to embrace a rebuild after buying out Duchesne and Johansson? That was a smokescreen for their true ambitions. The dream of an all-in push in Barry Trotz's image is upon us. Jussi Saros was rumored to be on a flight to New Jersey for months, but that's been grounded. An 8-year extension given to him at the TSA checkpoint will make sure of that. Alex Carrier was thrown another extension for good measure. As Askarov is groomed for a future here, more firepower is needed. And the solutions come in big signings on July 1st. Steven Stamkos is a power play weapon and foil to O'Reilly. Jonathan Marchessault for goal-scoring prowess and tenacity. Brady Shea to solidify the back end for 7 years? Good lord! The prices were exorbitant, but the gamble is admirable. If this works, it'll be the day they hail as their turnaround. Nashville has won July 1st. I recommend raising another banner to celebrate such an occasion regardless of performance. The final gasp of the OV era, Washington is desperate to get back to relevance. The old core is battered, and new pieces need to replace the fallen soldiers of seasons past. This apparently means Pierre-Luc Dubois. Exiled from LA on a huge contract. Wonderful. He just needs 1 year to play up to his potential and give a shit. Just one! Same goes for Jacob Chikrin. Frontline talent's in there, we've seen it before. Foil to John Carlson is needed. Maybe it's him, maybe it's Matt Roy from the Kings. Perhaps it's Logan Thompson to replace Darcy Kemper. Maybe they'll extend Chikrin and Thompson after this year. Andrew Mangiapane's been brought into the fold and it only cost them a second-round pick. It's a big season for the Caps. Let's not let everyone down. Hopefully that miracle run wasn't a flash in the pan. Bruins seem to be trying to jam another cup run into a round hole and it doesn't seem to want to go in. This offseason more than proves it. They went in with a shopping list of needs, but the price they paid was exorbitant in more ways than one. We had a hunch that the two-headed monster in net would be decapitated, and that's been confirmed. Linus Ullmark is off to a different nation. Canada, to be precise. It's one thing to trade for a horrific Eunice Korpisalo contract in your old first, but did you really have to announce it just before Game 7 of the Cup Final? Was Mark Kastelik really the piece that got this over the top? Don't get started on free agency. Elias Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov were their primary targets. Lindholm's coming off a down year and Zadorov is a third-pairing defenseman, but they both were secured. What the hell is that? Good God! We need a bigger cap. We all know Toronto always comes after Boston, and this is especially true in the NHL. Bruins property will try to improve their defense, but that may not come to pass until either Marner or Tavares are freed from these shackles. Leafs fans are pissed, and the only antidote is reinforcement. Joseph Woll's extension and Anthony Stolarz' deal are deserved, but on the back end is crease-clearing prowess. Jani Hakanpää and his size. Oliver Ekman-Larsson and hoping his Florida form can be maintained under a greater microscope. Chris Tanev becoming the new Jake Muzzin of the team. In both his play and probable exile to Robida Island in the future. 6-year deal for a physical 34-year-old? A trip like that's inevitable. When Chiefs involved as their new head coach, it can only be better than Sheldon Keefe's first-round exits of whoa. Berube's gonna help them, right? In terms of the rest of the Atlantic, the Leafs can always laugh at Ottawa. Linus Ullmark will somehow fall to shit here because this is how goaltending works in Sens land. Jacob Chikrin didn't work out, but Nick Jensen might bounce back at least. Hey, if they can find a way to solve the Shane Pinto dilemma, anything's possible. Even signing Michael Amadio and David Perron is middle six depth. Detroit's more or less trying to solve life without Dylan Larkin holding their hand. Goaltending's been a strange beast for them. Ville Husso will be reinforced with Cam Talbot without a 1-3-1 and Jack Campbell that turned into soup. They nabbed Vladimir Tarasenko too to get them another wingman for Larkin and Raymond. Patrick Kane's back for another round as well. But Jacob Trouba elbowed a potential trader because of his no-trade clause. Such a shame. Montreal doesn't have such shame. They're merely trying to solve a few logjams. Jonathan Kovacevic was traded off, but Juraj Slafkovsky needs to be rewarded for a second-half emergence. Price is rich, but it's a worthy risk for what he could be in the future. Speaking of future, we've been talking about that with Buffalo for an age. Pieces come and go. A bunch of them just won a cup with Florida. Perhaps Jeff Skinner wins one elsewhere after his buyout. For Wave of youth coming into the core, the Sabres must solidify their bottom six. Short-term deals to Sam Lafferty, Jason Zucker, and Nick Aube-Kubel are decent buys, but those aren't the ones that have me perplexed. Beck Malenstein had a decent year in Washington as a bottom sixer. But to trade a second-round pick for him? Trading Matthew fucking Savoie for Ryan McLeod? No wonder why they made those deals. At least they aren't Tanner Jeannot in scale, at least. Woes of the Devils are twofold and everyone knows what they are. Goaltending and defense. They undid what everyone thought would be a cup-caliber season, and it needs to be fixed regardless of cost. The question is, did they get the right guys for the job? I figured Jussi Saros was going to be a Devil, but he's off the table. Plan B is Jacob Markstrom. A starting caliber goalie, but is quite inconsistent. Dominant in stretches, underwhelming in others, yet the Devils need him badly. Cost wasn't too unbelievable, that's more for their defensive additions. Brett Pesce and Brendan Dillon, two burly physical presences that will hopefully solve major issues back there. Rich sums given to both, especially for Pesce's down year and Dillon's age, but once again New Jersey needed to do something. Tom Fitzgerald's fighting for his job. The gambles must be made. Even if they are to bring back Stefan Nason and Tomas Tatar and trade a woefully underused Alex Holtz to Vegas for a bottom sixer and Paul Cotter? Man, Akira Schmid fell off a map. Wait, we forgot John Marino? I can just go, it's fine. Eternal hunger is a punishment. Desire to feast yet never being able to reach the trough of success. That is Carolina's woe. The best chance at a cup was squandered, and there is significant talent and depth departing due to salary demands. This is yet to include Martin Necas, who's still in limbo. This limbo will not deter Eric Tulsky, the new GM of the Canes. Analytical darlings are needed to keep this team in the hunt. William Carrier is an excellent fourth liner on a relatively cheap AAV, but that's because he got a 6-year deal. Jack Roslovic is frustrating, but with a 1-year contract, that risk can be taken. Deals to Sean Walker and Shane Gostisbehere make a bit more sense. They came cheaper because the NHL is a hard-on for size, but Sean Walker's solid in his own zone. Besides, the Canes already have size. They just need a true superstar and they should be good. The question is, who is it? The rest of the Metro goes like this. Philadelphia made a hypothetical trade forced by fate itself. Like the rest of the men indicted from the 2018 Canadian World Juniors team, Carter Hart was not tendered a contract. His time with the Flyers, unsurprisingly, is over. Carter, I'd recommend looking for real estate in Russia. In return, a new star will rise, freed from the shackles of his KHL contract. Yes, Matvei Mishkov has come stateside. Hope for a brighter future and a better tomorrow. Philly's close. Mishkov will get them closer. As this happens, Lou Lamoriello is taking his customary summer nap. Lying on a nice hammock feeling the Long Island breeze, he's awoken by angry fans asking him to do something. Gracefully, Lou signs Anthony Duclair to the going market rate for 4 years, and then returns to slumber. Efficiency in motion. The Rangers aren't exactly there yet. They did make a few moves, most notably acquiring Riley Smith as the new Blake Wheeler of the team, but the question is with Jacob Trouba. There was a trade in place to send him to Detroit, but there just happened to be a pesky no-trade clause that undid their plans. Trouba is still in New York. For now. The only thing on the table for New York is an impasse of hilarious proportions. Pittsburgh is talking about competing, but after missing the playoffs for 2 straight years, they're straddling the line between this and rebuild. Rebuild should really be the choice. Kevin Hayes begins the youth movement with a 2nd-round pick added to take on the contract. He's now the youngest center on the team. They got another 2nd for Riley Smith, who just never meshed here. And the youth movement continues with Matt Grzelcyk and Anthony Beauvillier. Who cares if they're not good, they're still younger. The real future depends on whether Crosby wants to come back to this or chase another cup. Perhaps he'll go to Columbus? I'm just fucking with you. Don Waddell's their new hockey czar. And the moves are happening. They're not good moves, but it's something. Sean Monahan had a bounce-back season after years of sharp decline. Reuniting with Johnny Hockey is sentimental, but did he really have to get $5.5 million per year for 5 years? With the no-movement clause? That might end up being regrettable in 6 months. Patrick Laine already wants out, but the real solution is here. Stanley Cup champion Jack Johnson. He has returned. The Utah Hockey Club. The NHL's answer to the Washington football team. Their true name is still to be determined, but a new city is a call for celebration. There's so much cap space to use and an owner actually willing to spend it. This is their audition for Salt Lake City. A defensive headliner is needed to get them to the next level. That man? Mikhail Sergachev. The price paid for his services was extremely rich, but that caliber of player doesn't grow on trees. Well, John Marino for the defense is a little more common, but if the Devils are willing to give him away for a touch of their draft capital, go for it. And it continues with Sean Durzi getting paid for his excellent season. Ian Cole and Kevin Stenlund were aimed. Yuso Valimaki and Michael Kesselring also got extensions. And I don't believe they're done just yet. Utah's playoffs are bust. Or figure out their true name or bust, I'm not sure. The rest of the Central is in a stasis of sorts. Most franchises are merely feeling their way around both disappointing seasons and arduous rebuilds alike. Colorado will be without Nichushkin and Landeskog long-term yet again, but Jonathan Drouin's back after a strong campaign. Maybe Eric Brandstrom can fulfill his potential here, unlike in Ottawa too. Jets are just hoping not to implode again. Scott Arniel is the new head man in charge, but Winnipeg hasn't had to do all that much this offseason. Dylan DeMello got a handsome extension worthy of his skill, but it cost them a buyout to Nate Schmidt. An organizational crossroads has been reached. Same goes for St. Louis. Merely being patient with their moves instead of splurging. Kevin Hayes is off with a second-round pick to shed his salary, but that means they can take on Radek Faksa and Matthew Joseph for pretty much nothing. Hell, P.O. Joseph's here too. Brothers reunited. Pavel Buchnevich isn't a brother of theirs, but he's been extended in earnest. Eat your heart out, Rangers. Just don't eat the heart out of Minnesota, they're doing that to themselves. Look, I like Yakov Trenin, but at a $3.5 million cap hit? That's ridiculous. Jacob Middleton got a solid payday too, but at least that was the going rate for his caliber of player. All I can hope is that Danila Yurov comes over soon and Fleury blossoms one last time. And Chicago has to pay a hefty tax for their signings, mostly because they're still a rebuilding franchise. Connor Bedard's development is key. With the signings of Tyler Bertuzzi and Teuvo Teravainen, they should help. We're both overpaid a good bit, but that's market rate, baby. Same goes for TJ Brody, famously exiled from Toronto as well. Hey, there's Alec Martinez. Blackhawks just need development at this rate. Dallas, on the other hand, will once again benefit from Nashville buying out Matt Duchene. He wants a cup and he's close. So another one-year bargain deal leaves the rest of us jealous of his extra pay. Obviously, this is way too savvy for this offseason, so they'll be forced to add defensive handicaps in Matt Dumba and Ilya Lyubushkin, with both getting way too much. Guess Jim Nill's tired of winning GM of the Year these days. Last year was a revelation for the Canucks. Finally out of lolcowdom and back into an age of relevance. Now, if it's consistent or a mere flash in the pan is to be determined. But for Vancouver, there's one place they're looking to upgrade their depth. Boston. The team that broke their hearts in 2011 will get their hearts broken-ish. Jake DeBrusk has to hurt them a little bit, right? Paid him a rich sum for a streaky middle six forward, but this isn't like Jim Benning. Dan Heinen somehow has his best years with the Bruins and got paid again as well. Maybe this time he'll work outside of the Bruins. Derek Forbert's much easier to swallow with that cap hit, not to mention taking Vince Desharnais from Edmonton. You have to gash the Oilers whenever you can. All of Canada just wants to shred each other. They want to be the ones to win the cup, you know. Ilya Mikheyev can just go away to Chicago. He's unimportant these days. Kraken need to get off the schneid. Last year was slain at the feet of a lack of goal-scoring touch. The youth isn't there yet. They require help from outside forces. Offensive oomph is more than needed. It's a necessity. In their quest to complement Vince Dunn on the back end, a journey takes them to a champion. Brandon Montour requires a very hefty payment, but his hired hand is yours for the next 7 years. It's absolutely a risk, but look what he did for Florida in 2023. That's why they paid him like that. So why am I hesitant with my comments? They went a little too far, and that's because of adding Chandler Stevenson. Now, Stevenson in a vacuum is fine, but he gets 7 years at over $6 million per despite being a complimentary player. At least the deal's better than Lindholm's? I just have one question. Dan Bylsma's your new head coach? Thought he got banned from the NHL after ruining Detroit's power play. In terms of the rest of the Pacific, it's merely the status quo. Calgary's in a bit of a bind with all the contracts they're locked into and the soft reset being done. Jacob Markstrom's gone, but Dustin Wolf is the future. They wish they could get rid of Huberdeau, but Yegor Sharangovich was worthy of an extension at the least. He got paid a solid amount. Maybe Anthony Mantha plays up to his potential on a buy low deal? Ryan Lomberg's back home for $2 million a year? Really, $2 million for an energy forward? Vegas knows how to be brutal with their decision making. They shed a lot of pieces this offseason due to the cap, which includes original misfits in Carrier and Marchessault. Them being so slammed from cup taxes, all they could do is bring in Ilya Samsonov as a backup netminder. Just watch Alex Holtz live up to his pedigree here too. At least they had a more sensible plan than the Canes. They're lost, merely trying to throw pieces around and hope it gets them over the hump. Pierre-Luc Dubois, anyone? There's a reason why he's gone after only a year. Look, Darcy Kemper's an upgrade in net as a starting caliber goalie, but is he enough of an upgrade? Warren Fogel's a fine middle six forward for his price, but to pay nearly 4x4 for Joel Edmondson? We in 2019 again? San Jose might hope to get back there just so they can be back in the playoffs again. They might finally have some of that dreaded hope again. Macklin, Celebrini, and Will Smith will be coming to the NHL next year, and more help is on the way. Tyler Toffoli and Alex Wenberg will support them in their development, even if there's a long way to go for them. Anaheim, you there? I'm surprised they haven't done much of anything this offseason besides change their logo. Merely taking on the contracts of Robbie Fabry and Brian Dumoulin to get above the cap floor. At this point, I think your fans are all as shocked as Bennett Seneca when he was picked. Although that would imply Anaheim was logical. So are you trading Trevor Zegras or are you not?
30 fucking years! 30 fucking years! For every fucking one of you, 30 years! And for that woman over there, 30 years of being married to an asshole. Fuck yeah!